Hey students, wanted to go over some 5-6 stuff for you really quick, so here we go. Now the biggest skill to take away from 5-6 is what happens when they give you a point and they give you a line and then they say, hey, make another line that meets certain demands. So here we go. Given this point, given this line, we need to make another line that goes through the point and is parallel to this line. So what do you mean by parallel? Parallel, the only clue you really can take away is that you have the exact same slope. So I know, I'm going to kind of skip right to the answer. I know my line needs to be y equals 2x and then some other y-intercept. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to find it very shortly. So again, when it says parallel lines have the same slope. So if the slope is 2, this slope has to be 2. Now, this y-intercept, if you started at 7 and moved by 2, I don't think you go through this coordinate point. So that means we need to have a brand new y-intercept. How can we find that really quick? Well, if you notice, a point is an x and a y value, and you already have a slope in your equation. You just need to know what that b value is. Remember, slope-intercept form was like y equals mx plus b. Well, I have a slope, I have an x, I have a y. So I'm going to plug in the three pieces that I know into the equation and solve for b. So the y value is -3. The slope has to be 2 because it's parallel, so it's got to be the same slope. I'm going to plug in a 5. I'm going to solve for b. So mental math, that's 10. So if I subtract 10 from both sides, okay, I'm going to have a -13. So b equals a -13. Okay, there you go. So there's my y-intercept. So let me throw it into the equation. Boom. There you go. Now if I were to graph that equation, it would be parallel to this one because it's 2x, and it would go through 5 and -3. How do I know? Because I plugged in x and y and I solved for b. So -13 is where it's got to start, and then 5 and -3 is what it's going to go through. Okay, next question is very similar, but it says, hey, you got to go through that point. I'm going to rewrite it. You got to go through the point 5 and 3, and you have to go through y equals 2x plus 7. So you have to be perpendicular, excuse me. You have to go through this point, and you have to be perpendicular to this equation. So what does that mean? Perpendicular means opposite reciprocals. So what's the opposite reciprocal of 2? -half. Okay, so I know my equation needs to be y equals -half x. -half is the opposite reciprocal of 2. You flip it, you make it opposite. So I flipped it, made it opposite. If it's positive, this one's negative, this is a whole number, you flip it. Okay, you got to do those two things. You're going to make it opposite and reciprocate it. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I got to find the y-intercept now. Okay, so I'm going to plug in the x and y values. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, same process. My y value is still -3. My slope is now -1/2, and I got to plug in a 5. There you go. So -half times 5 is a -2.5. So I'm going to add 2.5 to both sides. Okay, I'm just solving here, friends. Yeah, so again, -half times 5 is a -2.5, and then to get rid of it, I add 2.5. So a -3 plus a 2.5 is just a -half, I think. There you go. I'm right as a decimal. There you go. There you go. So there's my y-intercept. So my y-intercept needs to be -half. So it's kind of weird. My equation is going to be y equals a -half x minus a half. So you can write it as a decimal or a fraction. That just looks a little bit prettier, I suppose. So there we go. This equation is going to be perpendicular to that one, and it's also going to go through that coordinate point. That's it. That's all you do, friends. You just figure out what type of slope do you need. If it's the same slope, if it's parallel, if it's parallel, use the same slope, so use a 2. If it's perpendicular, use the opposite reciprocal, and then away we go. Use the coordinate point they give you, plug it in, find the y-intercept. That's the thing. Where do I start? Where do I start? That's what you throw into your new equation. Okay, now the last two are probably going to be the easiest here. How do you go through the point and have a vertical line? So how can you make a vertical line go through the point 5 and -3? Well, if you remember, vertical lines are always written as x equals a number. And all vertical lines have the exact same x coordinate. So x equals what x coordinate? That's the only x coordinate they give you in this point. So if you were to graph x equals 5, it would go right through the coordinate point 5 and -3. Now don't think too hard here. Horizontal lines are always in the form of y equals a number, and all horizontal lines have the same y coordinate. So let's see here. If I want to go through the coordinate point 5 and -3 horizontally, I'm going to say y equals -3. There you go. So again, the coordinate point 5 and -3. If you want to draw a vertical line through it, you just go x equals the x coordinate If you want to go horizontal through it, you go y equals the y coordinate. That's it. This original line really has no business. So horizontal and vertical lines really don't pay attention to any other lines. They're up and down and left and right. So that's it, friends. That is the skills from 5-6. Okay, bye.